Views and opinions expressed by Edwin are Edwin and Edwin's only, all right? Not of his sponsors, employers, baby mama, anybody he went to school with, anybody he owe money to. With that being said, enjoy the video. What is going on, everyone? Edwin Pagan here. Thanks for joining me on the Word on the Road podcast, your weekly technology care package. I got that good radio voice right now. I sound like I'm on Love Line or something. What's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining me. I know this is like a Friday edition of the episode. I got a little more free time now, and so I wanted to put a podcast episode out. All right, I know I said Wednesday, it's Friday, it's 2 weeks late, but we're here. And first of all, can we just take a moment to appreciate, because listen, I wanted to show this, I wanted to start the podcast off with this, so if you're listening to the podcast, I'm sorry, but can we just take a minute to appreciate what is going on right here? This is a SpaceX launch, and I know this is kind of late, but I wanted to kind of showcase like the SpaceX Dragon docking with the International Space Station. Bro, this looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Check this out, man. I know this is a weird introduction of the podcast, but I wanted to start it off with this. Look how that thing links, bro. Look at that. $1 billion worth of space technology. All right, man, let's get back on topic. Hey, guys, thanks for joining me on the Word on the Road podcast. This is a weekly technology care package that I do weekly. I haven't been doing it weekly, but this is a weekly podcast where I take 3 articles from the internet, usually tech related, that I find interesting. I give you my opinion, I give you my thoughts, insights, I break it down for you, and then I send you on your way more educated and more informed of the things going on the interwebs, man. But yo, is my lighting weird right now? If you're watching on YouTube, I feel like I got like a lighting right here. Listen, I'm constantly making improvements to the podcast on a budget, and so I'm using like some budget lighting, and I feel like my image is coming in cleaner because of the green screen in the back, but I feel like there's like a shadow overlay on me. But man, with that being said, man, I hope everyone's having a good week, man. I'm in Orlando, a lot of stuff going on. I don't want to get political on this podcast today, and so I'm going to try to refrain from talking about some of those things, although I will talk about them. I want to give everybody a kind of a break from that on this podcast, and I'd like to kind of just talk about tech on this podcast. So I will be talking about that, everything going on in Orlando, Black Lives Matter movements, and just kind of the protesting going on that I fully support people, exercising the right to do that. But on this podcast today, at least, I just want to share tech stories and give everybody like a disconnect, and honestly, just kind of get my gears wet or gears running again, because I haven't put out an episode in like 3 weeks. And I know it sounds like, 3 weeks is nothing, but when you don't do a podcast for like 3 weeks, bro, you get rusty. Man. But with that being said, man, everything is good with me. Everything is finally starting to get back to normal. It's like, I feel like slowly but surely, I'm putting clothes on more often. The gyms are open, so I've been working out like 3 weeks straight, man, and I feel like I'm really starting to feel like myself again, in the way of like, because like during quarantine, all I did was run, and so not being able to lift weights and stuff like that, I know this sounds like a meathead thing to say, bruh, it has some effects on your boy, you know what I'm saying? And so the gyms being open now has got me in a better mood. I'm able to just kind of like focus and relax, because like the gym for me, man, is really it's like therapeutic, bro. And a lot of people don't understand, like, I don't have a particular fitness goal in my head of what I want to look like. I want to have massive shoulders, big arms, maybe abs one day. That's pretty much it. That's the extent of it. After that, it's more of a therapeutic thing for me. I like to go in there, and it's just a way to disconnect from the world, and just lift weights and kind of just exert this energy that I have, because I'm not this person who's like, angry or anything like that, but I am an animal, you know what I'm saying? I am a beast, put up some weight, and that's what the gym allows me to do. It kind of allows me like to kind of get my thoughts together, think about things, that's really what I love about the gym. And when you're quarantined, you can't really do that, so it's cool that the gyms are open again, man. But as far as tech goes, man, it's just been like weird with tech and everything, right? Because like of the quarantine, so I haven't had like it's just the juices ain't been flowing like they used to, you know what I'm saying? But that's just my personal side of things, man. But with that being said, man, let's go ahead and jump right into the articles of the podcast. I don't want to get too personal here. So, of course, the articles discussed on the podcast today will be available in the description of the podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, it's in the description below, the links to the articles. And if you're listening on like Anchor, or if you're listening on iTunes, it'll be available in the description or information about the podcast. So, with that being said, guys, first story of the day is coming from the fine folks at TheVerge.com, which is basically talking about how Zoom says free users won't get end-to-end encryption, so FBI and police can access calls, man. And so if you're not familiar with the Zoom application, apparently everybody and their mother is using Zoom for everything. And I think when you die now, it's a Zoom meeting. But with that being said, man, Zoom is basically called the video calling company Zoom confirmed this week that they won't enable end-to-end encryption for free calls, in part because it wants to give law enforcement these access to these calls if necessary. Now, to just break this down for people, what encryption means. Basically, what encryption means, and I'm gonna try to do like a bro science version of this, is that when the conversation is happening, when it's encrypted, if someone intercepts that information of that conversation, so if they put the little peepers, if they tap into that transmission, they can't intercept it. They can't intercept anything that's readable. It's all encrypted, and so they would have to decrypt that information. Versus when it's decrypted, so it's not encrypted, they can tap into that feed, right, and actually intercept the information and actually listen to what it is that you're saying, right? And so what Zoom is saying is that, like, if you pay for our service, we will offer end-to-end encryption. If you don't pay for our service, we will not offer end-to-end encryption, and mostly due in part to allowing law enforcement to have access to this, right? So that's kind of what they're saying. And so from a standpoint of a technology professional, I'm saying, like, well, end-to-end encryption, dude, you have to have it, especially if you're talking about video and audio conferencing, right? But in that same respect, there is a cost associated with doing full using end-to-end encryption. It's a lot more bandwidth intensive, and at the end of the day, if you're using a free subscription with Zoom, there's always going to be functionality limitations. So you can't expect Zoom to offer video conferencing for free to customers and also offer encryption all for the cost of nothing, no advertising, anything like that. And so I can understand where Zoom comes from in that standpoint. But they also made an interesting point, which is that, like, they stated that Zoom does not proactively monitor meeting content. We do not share information with law enforcement except in circumstances like sex and child abuse, child and sex abuse. And they also state that they don't have backdoors on their software that allow for people to enter the meeting without being noticed. So off rip, they're kind of saying, like, yeah, we don't offer end-to-end encryption on free plans, but we also don't have built-in backdoors to allow law enforcement to monitor the calls. Meaning, like, they're not doing anything shady. They don't have a secret door or secret passcode that you don't know about, that only law enforcement knows about on their software. And so that kind of speaks to, like, hey, listen, we can't offer end-to-end encryption for free plans, but in the same respect, we also don't build functionality into our application to allow law enforcement to tap into calls. And I think there's a balance that's being met here. I'm not mad at the situation. I think that I think that Zoom has been catching a lot of slack. I think Zoom has been catching a lot of slack because they are the leader right now in video conferencing software, and out of the blue, they became the leader in video conferencing software. And I think a lot of companies are trying to find a way to take them down, and I think they're not going anywhere in that respect. But in that same sense, I think when it comes to, like, the idea that, like, child pornography and organized crime being taken place through Zoom applications, I think that at the end of the day, that's the cost of doing business, right? I think that, like, there's always going to be people who are going to abuse technology. I think that the FBI and a lot of forensics companies already have measures in place for tracking the transmission of child pornography and isolating it to people. There's unique forensic techniques out there that I can go on forever and talk about, but I think that they're doing enough, and I think that in this instance, Zoom has the right to say, hey, if you're going to use our free software, we can't give you the full functionality as everyone else. There's going to be restrictions, and one of the restrictions is going to be end-to-end encryption. Right? So, man, I feel like I vented too much about that. But that being said, man, next story of the day is coming from the fine folks at, I've never seen this, thenextweb.com, which is, there's a Google faces a $5 billion lawsuit over tracking users in Incognito mode. Incognito, son. So if you're not familiar with the Incognito mode, it's Control-Shift N. Control-Shift-N enables something called Incognito mode on your Google Chrome web browser. We call it the porn mode. It's when you want to watch porn, you don't want to leave any tracking, you don't want to leave any cookies, and you go Control-Shift-N, and it puts your browser in incognito mode. And all jokes aside, it's also really useful if you're trying to diagnose issues with a website, because what incognito mode does is it opens up a separate web browser on your computer or on your mobile device. It's a completely separate web browser that's clean. All right, it doesn't have any of your cookies stored in it. It doesn't have any of your tracking information. And so in theory, you can access a website, and then once you close that browser, there's no traces of you accessing that website left on your web browser. It completely goes away, right? So it won't be in your history, it won't be under your bookmarks, it won't show up anywhere. And so what this lawsuit states is that Google was actually able to track users even if they were in incognito mode. The complaint further alleges that gathering data through Google Analytics and Google Ad Manager and various mobile apps help the company learn about users' closest contacts, hobbies, etc. And so with that being said, and I definitely encourage you to check out the article. If you think that Google Incognito mode is going to protect you from whatever you're doing, you're strictly you're kidding yourself, bro. And the reason I say that is because incognito mode is still just designed to not leave any traces on your system. But at the end of the day, when you access a website, you're still using your internet connection, right? And so whether you're incognito mode or not, your ISP still has a tracking or a log of you accessing a certain website at a certain time. And in the same respect, when you access a website, you use an IP address. And so there is other variables or other factors that Google has to track you when you're accessing certain websites. It's not as accurate, but they can still tell that, hey, if someone's accessing this website from this IP address, then more than likely it's this device. And there is, identifiers that these websites are able to capture. And so I guess to me, it's a little silly that this idea that people have that that somehow Google incognito mode is going to protect you from the feds. It's like saying I did all this damage. I hacked into a bunch of websites using my laptop, and then I just threw my laptop in a lake. That they'll never be able to catch me. Well, no, they have other ways to track you. They have fingerprints that you left behind, digital fingerprints and stuff like that. And so incognito mode is not the only way to protect yourself. Like if you really want to remain anonymous online, obviously there's the Tor browser you can use. Obviously there's things like NordVPN. I'm not sponsored by them, but like VPN applications that you could use in theory that can protect you. But incognito mode is not going to protect you. So it's interesting that there is a lawsuit coming along because of this, but definitely check out this article. It's the nextweb.com, and shout out to Google for doing us all dirty. No, I'm just joking. I personally think that listen, it's not that I've given in to the idea that we're not anonymous anymore, but it's just really hard to remain anonymous online. It's just the days of being anonymous, if they ever existed, are gone. And so all right, cool, man. That being said, next article, last but not least, especially with these trying times, Signal announces a new face blurring tool for the Android iOS application. All right, the encrypted messaging app Signal has announced a new face blurring tool that will be incorporated in the latest Android versions of the softwares. So basically, they're giving users the ability that if you post a picture, you can actually blur out people's faces so you can protect their identities. And a lot of this is just coming from the fact that these protests that are going on right now, people are scared that if they do get arrested or they're scared that their employer might see them at these protests, or the police might see them at the protest and associate them with being rioters, etc. And so this blurring feature it's for sure. I guess it's useful, but from the problem with me, and it's not the problem with me. The issue I see with this. Okay, let me backtrack. It's not an issue I see. It's the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation for me is that as someone who's taken I didn't go to college for forensics. I took a single forensics course over a 3 weeks period on an online class, and I learned so much about forensics. I learned so much about forensics in a way that I realized you can't get away with anything. We are incredibly tracked. We don't even realize, like, your mobile device has GPS, it has a cellular, so they can use GPS coordinates to precisely track you, or they could use the cell phone towers that you're bouncing off to kind of triangulate where you are. You're constantly pinging towers. Your Facebook account knows what you're visiting. And so the idea that somehow blurring your face is going to, I guess, do anything, it's just weird, because maybe you post a picture with your face blurred, but doesn't mean that someone else doesn't have a picture of you without your face blurred. You know what I'm saying? And in the same respect, they can still put you at a scene of a crime based on your tracking information. And so I guess to me, this idea that, like, if I blur my face out, they're not going to be able to find me. Well, no, they just, that one picture won't be useful to them, but there's 1,000 other pictures that they can find. Like, I dare you to try it. Like, I dare you to go on Instagram and just look at a location, right? And just look at all the stories in that location. Look at all the pictures posted in that location, at the latest pictures. And you'll see that if you were there, somehow someone's going to catch you. And so I think that, like, yeah, it's a step in the right direction. But at the end of the day, it's a bit of overkill, because at the end of the day, if the police want to find you, they're going to find you. You know what I'm saying? If your employer wants to find out you were at a protest, they're going to go out of their way to find out. And if you looted or you did some type of crime activity, well, then what's this blurring technology for? Is it designed for criminals? Are we imploring people to use technology? Like, it draws this gray line, but I understand what they're trying to do here. But at the reality of the situation, as someone who is in that field, it doesn't do anything, guys. They're gonna find you. You know what I'm saying? If it was me, you better go out there with a ski mask, gloves. You know what I'm saying? Like, you better come with a burner phone. You better use a burner account through Uber, and, like, the list goes on the things you would have to do in order not to get tracked if you committed a crime. And with that being said, like, I do think this is a little bit of overkill, and it's just gonna make for some awkward pictures. And it's not the first time I've seen someone trying to implement this type of, like, blurring strategy. I've seen some people, like, who were, like, they were very, like, weird about posting pictures about their kids, and so they would post family pictures, and in the family pictures, like, the kids' faces would be blurred, but it would be like the family. It's like, you don't want anybody on the internet to know what your kids look like. Then why even tell anybody on the internet that you have kids? Because then people will become obsessed with the idea of finding out if you have kids. It doesn't make any sense to me. But sometimes people go a little weird during weird times. But man, that being said, guys, those are the articles for this episode. Of course, they are available in the description below. I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast, man. I know this was it's the first episode in a while. But you know what? Maybe we'll start doing some more. But look forward to the next episode on Wednesday. I know it's Friday, Wednesday, non-Puerto Rican time. All right, it's gonna be Wednesday, I promise. But with that being said, man, I appreciate everybody listening. I want everybody out there to stay safe, man. If you're in one of those areas where the protesting is going on, and it's it's interesting there, just be safe, man. Remember that everyone has the right to protest. This is our God-given right to kind of stand up for what we believe in, and so respect that right for other people, even if you don't agree with them. You know, if you see someone who just got pepper sprayed, get them some milk or something. But all jokes aside, guys, stay safe out there, man. We're almost out of quarantine. We're almost gonna be able to be just like free again. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to be making some more videos. But with that being said, man, I appreciate y'all listening. And until next time, this has been the Word on the Road podcast. My name is Edwin Pagan. Take care, everyone. Peace.
Guys, what are you doing?
Watching my dad's channel.
Watching your dad's YouTube channel?